welcome back to Rams Up, your favorite LA Rams podcast. We are part of the Fans First Sports Network. You can follow us on our YouTube channel as well, at LA Rams Up. I'm your host, Mark. I'll be joined occasionally by my football gurus, Paul and Ian. Let's get to it. Hey, what's going on, Ram fans? I have another pregame pulse here. Rams Seahawks kicking off Week 18 matchup this afternoon. Paul Wallia joining me. We'll share some thoughts, some final thoughts going into this game. Good morning, Paul. How are you doing today?
Shout out to the Worldwide Rambling. Doing great. Looking forward to the last week of the season. Let's get the playoffs started. Let's go.
Yeah, it's kind of a different vibe, these Sundays with somewhat, well, I wouldn't say it's meaningless. I mean, the result is going to contribute to some playoff scenarios perhaps, but it's still kind of a chill Sunday for me anyways. Hopefully you feel the same.
Yeah, absolutely. So, lay back, relax, enjoy.
Right.
Got our fingers crossed today. Rams come out of this game healthy. That's all that matters.
Right, exactly. And I had talked to you before. I wanted to discuss with you. You're in New York, and you maybe have the pulse of New York before we get into the Rams Seahawks and playoffs and all that stuff. What is going on? Black Monday tomorrow, right? There's going to be some heads rolling, coaches getting released, sad to say. And, the Jets are interviewing Rex Ryan, is my understanding. So how does Jets Nation feel about bringing Rex Ryan back? I was kind of surprised.
So let me preface all my comments by saying all my buddies and my son are huge Jets fans. So had a chance to, talk with them and get some feedback from them. I've also been listening to everything, media, et cetera. So it's interesting. So this is just my personal take on it. So the two candidates that I absolutely love for the Jet job are Vrabel and Aaron Glenn. I think those two are like a 1A and a 1B. Aaron Glenn coming back to the Jets, you cannot write a better script for the Jets. There is a definite leaning towards an offensive-minded coach. I think rightfully so. Jet Nation is just so tired of the offensive struggles. But in all honesty, being able to attract a high-powered offensive mind like Johnson, who's everybody's going to be throwing money at this guy. And, I don't know if that's necessarily going to happen. I think they should definitely give it a shot. But I think Vrabel and Glenn, in my opinion, are those two candidates are the way to go for the Jets.
Yeah, I still can't believe the Titans let Vrabel go, and Aaron Glenn, the defensive coordinator for the Lions, right? And
Yep.
So he's established himself as a solid NFL coach. So yeah, it'd be interesting.
And a little bit of Ramley connection here, Mark. Ray Agnew, assistant GM for the Lions, right? Former Ram. I was always hoping that he would come back to the Rams in the front office somehow, but I think about this, a package deal of Agnew and Glenn coming over to the Jets. Yeah. How impressive would that be? And a nice nugget for Jet Nation. I think Berganzi, the assistant GM from KC, I think that's a no-brainer. I think that they should go all in on trying to get him to be the GM for the Jets. He's been with that organization for 16 years, worked his way up from scouting to personnel to operations. He's been there for the championships. The Jets, as an organization, really have to think about what we talk about all the time, culture. When the Rams brought over Snead didn't, there were a lot of detractors in terms of Snead, but I think just the combination of McVay and Snead working together was the difference, and it really shaped a culture. And I think that's really what the Jets need to take a look at. So bringing Berganzi over with Vrabel would be like a nice framework, coming over from two different championship teams, right? The Patriots and the Chiefs, saying, listen, what's in commonality here? What do we want to keep? Where do we want to be innovative? That type of thing. And more importantly, they know the AFC.
Yeah,
that's the key right there.
Yeah, and I think Mike McCarthy is probably going to be let go. I have a feeling, but you never know with the Cowboys.
Yeah.
But I think they need to make a change as well. But Black Monday will be well, maybe we'll have an episode if we have time for it to talk about all the upcoming head coaching vacancies. So let's get to this Rams Seahawks game. Put together some slides here to walk through. Game notes here. Rams are 10-6, of course, have clinched the NFC West title. Seahawks 9-7. They've clinched second place. And by the way, if as of right now they have the last pick in the draft of the non-playoff teams, that could change a little bit if they were to lose here. Current line, it opened up at 6.5, I think, but I saw it up to 7 points. So people starting to lean on the Seahawks a little bit here. Seahawks injuries, they're pretty healthy. Now, offensive tackle Abram Lucas, cornerback Josh Joby, and are both out and questionable as a rookie. Defensive tackle Byron Murphy. What I don't know is, their coach McDaniel had said they are going to treat it like a regular game. They're going to approach it like a regular game. That remains to be seen how serious is about that. Now, you were talking, Geno Smith has some incentives at stake here, so he may play until he meets those incentives, assuming the coach is going to be behind his cause there, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is a tough game to try to make sense out of, right? Playing all your regulars in a meaningless game, that type of sort of approach. But and it was in the sporting news. It was in a couple of other media links as well. There are some heavy incentives for Geno Smith, so that might be the rationale. Let him hit those and then pull them out, and then the Seahawks go back into what would be, let's get through this game mode, which I'm hoping is what happens. The last thing you want is for the Ram regulars to have to be out there any longer than they have to, right? We want to go get this game over, get it down to 0 on the clock, and let's go home, right? So this is a tough game to call in terms of how it's going to play itself out. There are a lot of other factors here. I think also the division rivals, they don't want to lie down for the Rams, and that makes sense too. But I think at this point, I think it's smarter to just keep everything in the holster and let's call it a day. And I think
Yeah.
McVay's doing the right thing. Play your backups. Well, he's 100% on target. The Rams are, I think people are almost counting it almost as an automatic L. But if you take a look at what the Rams are rolling out there, they got a legitimate chance of stealing a W. So I'm very
Yeah.
confident.
Yeah. And I know you're not a big fan of Jimmy G and the addition of Jimmy G to this roster, but he's a pretty experienced quarterback, and you throw him out there. Now, my concern with Jimmy G, that's what made Carson Wentz such a good backup is if things fall apart, he can make things happen off schedule with his legs. I don't know if Jimmy G can do that, but Jimmy G is a pretty experienced quarterback, and he's a competent quarterback. He may have some shortcomings, but in a game like this, kind of feel a little bit more comfortable about our chances, even with some backup receivers. And by the way, I said Coach McDaniel. Man, there's too many Irish coaches in this league: McCarthy, McDaniel, and McDonald. The Seattle coach is McDonald there. Yeah, hopefully Seattle comes to their senses at some point in this game. Gino gets his incentives, and they back off a little bit. So the Rams situation is a little bit different. I think all of these guys that I show here, they could play if needed. And that includes these are the guys that we know are not going to play: Matthew Stafford, Kyron Williams, Puka Nakua, Cooper Kupp, Rob Havenstein, Kevin Dotson, Alaric Jackson. Now that doesn't tell us are there additional guys that are going to be put on the shelf as well. We really don't know. This would imply that Steve Avila and Bo Limmer are going to play, and I'm not convinced of that. But maybe they will. How do you think the Rams are going to treat this? Specifically, wide receivers and offensive line would be my biggest question. Who's going to play and who isn't?
So I think Stafford's definitely out. Aaron Kyron's definitely out. Puka and Kupp are definitely out. I think Big Rob is definitely out. I think, I don't think they would play Dotson, but this is what we talked about last time. If you don't play any of your starters, who are you going to play? it's hard to put out a cohesive unit. I think there's
Right.
the problem. There was a hint in the Ram media that Bo Limmer would start, which makes sense to some degree. But look, I watched the game, the Ravens game. Look what happened to Zay Flowers, sprained his knee, right?
Mm.
So this is the risk. This is what has everyone nervous in these type of games, right? But so the combination of players, like I said, I think it's going to lean a little bit towards the majority of like scout team plus maybe one or two starters, right? To just make sure at key positions to make sure that everything is cohesive. On defense, McVay said on the show, the episode, that he was going to play a lot of the starters on D for a little bit, because like we talked about last time, the depth scenario is it's not there on D in certain key positions. At our last segment, we talked about that. So it's hard to predict. But I definitely think, the six that we talked about here, I don't think they're going to play. And rightfully so.
Yeah, and I meant to check this before we recorded here, and I just did check, and the practice squad elevations might be very telling, and they activated AJ Curry and outside linebacker Keir Thomas,
Keir Thomas.
and Keir Thomas makes sense. Right now, if you got Byron Young, Michael Hoyt, and Jared Verse, and then after that, the only true outside linebacker is Brennan Jackson, because Nick Hampton went down, unfortunately. So Keir Thomas was elevated, and that indicates to me probably by the second half, we're going to see a lot of Brennan Jackson and Keir Thomas, I think. Now, can they go every snap? Probably not. So, Michael Hoyt's probably going to rotate in there. That's the issue you have. You said like, oh, let's start these 11 backups. Well, it's really difficult, especially on defense, to go every snap, So that's the dilemma. And they're going to have that dilemma pretty much in every position group. So we'll see.
And the dilemma really is not so much the bodies, right? Finding the bodies, is that they haven't played together, right? So the most recent episode of Vamos Rams had they had K Dot on there. And great episode, Ram Nation, definitely check it out. So K Dot said the same thing. He said, "Can you imagine our O line if we had played together the entire season?" He says, "We're still coming together." Right. And he says, the sky's the limit. So he brings up a good point that sometimes it's not just the bodies, it's how much time they've had a chance to play together, right? And to become in sync. So even just to get through a game, you need that element. So yeah, it's going to be this is going to be like a game time scenario when you watch it, and it's going to be fluid as the game progresses. But, like I said, Ram Nation, run the ball, kill the clock, and let's go home. That's our philosophy for this. And if we steal a dub, we steal a dub.
Yeah, thinking this through, I could definitely see the starting left. Well, Havenstein and Lyric are not going to play. So you're looking at Noteboom and McClendon. And at some point, AJ or Curry comes in and they slide Noteboom to guard and get Avila out of there, something like that. I could see that happening. Okay, so what else do we got? I'll go over these playoff scenarios real quickly. We discussed this at the round table, but the Rams have a few scenarios. They could be hosting the Lions. They could be hosting the Vikings. Not going to that would be a scenario where the Rams drop to the 4 seed, and then who wins that Sunday night game, right? We don't spend a lot of time on this. We discussed this pretty thoroughly at our round table. And then the other scenarios is the Rams come out as the 3 seed. That would mean the Rams would need to win this game most likely. And in those situations, they'd be hosting the Packers or the Commanders. And I think the consensus here among us, Rams up, the Rams up crew here is, it seems like everybody wants to see the Lions in the first round. And the reason for that is twofold, I think. One, the revenge factor, and number two, the Lions have a lot of injury issues, and they're probably just going to get healthier as each week moves along. So why not play them now, right? I know you'd like to see the Lions, correct?
Yeah, especially coming off of a hard-fought game against the Vikes. But, really my preference is this. I want to stay away from any outdoor games, right? So if you look at the whole string of games that, and thank you, Ram Nation, for the comments. We were sharing some of our insights in the comments, and we love to hear yours as well. So, my rationale is simple. I want to stay away from as many outdoor games as possible. I don't care who we play, faceless opponents. I hope we do get a chance at the Lions, right? So a little bit of payback. But the bottom line is, Dome is home. That's the way I look at it. Dome is home. So as many indoor games as possible, I think that's the best thing for the Rams. So I think any combination thereof that give the Rams as many home games as well as many indoor games, I think is the best scenario for the Rams.
Yeah, and there is a scenario someone shared on one of the networks. I forget who it was, where Green Bay goes into Philadelphia, and that would be a nice scenario because I think Green Bay could take care of the Eagles. At least, I think the NFC is set up so that I don't think any team. I think all seven teams have a shot. They really do. Uh, and especially, a team like the Bucks, if they get a couple of home games, they could be really dangerous. They're scoring a ton of points there in Tampa Bay. And as I mentioned before, the one thing that's attractive about playing the Bucks is the Rams' two Super Bowl titles. Both seasons they went through Tampa Bay to get there. So there's that. I also,
You had mentioned that last time. So,
yeah,
and I agree with you. The NFC, remember and I said it last time. I said it's not about the seeding, right? Everyone's like, "Oh, this is the best team. That is the best team." But you hit the nail on the head. You have teams that are heating up over the last couple of weeks. They're going into the playoffs red hot. Those are the teams that you really have to be wary of because they're not going to cool off anytime soon. So they're coming into the playoffs, on that sort of rising trajectory. Those are the teams that are dangerous.
yeah.
So I agree with you on that point.
So I put together a list of four things I hope to see, and I've been changing my mind on this on a daily basis. There's a lot of things we might want to see, but I got kind of specific here, and I'll let you chime in at the end. You can comment, disagree as we go, and add some other things you'd like to see. The first thing I'd like to see is, some production out of our running backs. Really interested to see what Blake Corum could do if Sean McVay is being honest with us and he's going to get a heavy load. What does that mean? Does that mean 10 carries instead of 4? Does that mean 20 carries? But let's see what he can do with carrying the ball a significant number of times. We've seen little glimpses of it seems like every time he has a great run, it's called back. So let's see what I thought he might not play in this game, but apparently he's going to. Ronnie Rivers, we kind of know what we're getting with Ronnie. He's a little bit more of a thumper than the other guys, but he's good for 3 yards in a cloud of dust. He's a good running back. And then Cody Schrader, he may not play at all. And maybe I'm being a little silly expecting to see a lot out of Cody Schrader, but this is a guy that led the SEC in rushing, had 200 yards rushing and 100 yards receiving, a Missouri record against Tennessee, played in the SEC and was very productive. So I'm kind of excited, and maybe we won't get a good measure of him playing in a game like this. But you agree with this one, or you got to be a little excited to see what Blake Corum can do as the primary running back, we assume?
Yeah, you'd love to see Blake carry the rock, but at the same time, like you said, he's also our primary RB2. So we want to make sure, when McVay says he's going to get a ton of touches in the McVay world, a ton of touches for a running back, like he said, could be 8 carries, right? Could be 10 carries. But see what he can do. It's interesting. We have our roundtable coming up. One of the things, obviously talking about the paving blocks, when we review them again for the roundtable is this. You need some fresh legs. This offense needs some fresh legs, right? I think we all commented on it, that they're starting to sag a little bit. They're starting to look a little worn down. And at wide receiver, at running back, it's going to be crucial going into the playoffs, particularly that wide receiver 4 spot and that running back 2 spot. Get some fresh legs in there. And this is a nice way to get Blake some carries get him familiar with all the different nuances of the offense. I'm sure he has, but it's just a matter of execution and letting him get familiar, because I think his number is going to get called a little bit more than people realize come playoff time. Ronnie Rivers is just all reliable, and Cody Schrader is just a great story. I mean, an absolute just great story. You talk about an underdog story. Tough as nails. Great college career. It would be great to see Ronnie and Cody carry the rock and run the clock down to 0 in the second half.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. And of course, they need to block a little bit too with Jimmy G back there, and so that's a big part of it. We know Ronnie and Blake can handle that. Cody, who knows? He'll certainly get his opportunities. Maybe we'll see Stetson Bennett too. Who knows? Depends on how the game goes. Maybe if it's just getting crazy out of hand at the end there. The other thing I thought would make sense, we're starting to get a little bit of a warm fuzzy with Josh McCarty. I I'm feeling better. It's been up and down with him all year. One week we're like, what did we do drafting a kicker? And then the next week it's like, hey, he's our guy. But I'm not sure we have a gauge for him on, 50 plus. He hit a 53 yarder, sure. It would make sense for me to let him, if we're in those situations, just let him try a 58 yarder. Let him try a few. Let him try some 40 yard. Just kick field goals all day long and see what we got for sure with Josh McCarty. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. The more work, the better. Let him bomb some. Absolutely. Let him build his confidence. He's a rookie. He's going to be going into the playoffs, right? You talk about pressure. You thought the regular season was pressure, kid. Now it's in the playoffs, right? And chances are he's probably going to be called on at a couple of pivotal moments in the game, right? Or a game deciding kick to send the Rams to the next round. So, yeah, why not? Let him bomb some. Let him kick it from everywhere. Let him get
Yeah,
his confidence up. Let him get, refine his technique going into the playoffs. Absolutely, I concur.
yeah, and it could be dictated by, the game situations, obviously, but there are situations where, fourth and short where you might go for it. If you're in that, that in between zone there, go ahead and try the field goal. And if he can hit a 57 yarder at SoFi, let's find out. Let's find out now. So like, okay, next we're not going to do that. Joshua, you got to prove it. Time to prove it. And if you can't, that's fine. At least we know what we have, sort of, kind of, anyways. But um, the next thing I want to see is, Emmanuel Forbes. Now, I was thinking about this morning, assuming, we have those Geno Smith going after those records, those incentives, I should say. And they have a pretty good receiving core. DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, JSN. And you're thinking, Darius Williams is probably going to have to be assigned to JSN. Akilla Witherspoon would probably be typically have an eye on DK Metcalf. I don't know exactly what their approach would be. I know they play a lot of zone. But, I'd if it were up to me, I'd start Forbes and just let him have a go at it and sit Darius Williams. I assume that they're probably both going to start Williams and Witherspoon and play a little bit. But let's see what Forbes brings to the table here. If he's going to be, if he proves over this game in the playoff run that he can contribute on the back end, what a big win for the Rams grabbing this guy. How do you feel about giving Forbes a lot of playing time in this game?
All of Ram Nation is looking for a pick six. This kid, right? That's his specialty. That was his calling card in college. And if D Will plays a little bit, he's going to be looking for a pick six, knowing that Gino's going to be chucking it. So yeah, I agree. It's good to see. Listen, look, he's a talented kid. There's no question about it. The Rams rolled the dice. It would be great to see what he has. I mean, obviously it's just one game, but what a perfect scenario to put him in there and let him play a little bit, right? Let him get his feet wet. Let's see what it can do. Obviously, we're not going to judge his whole career based on this one game, but you're right. He might be called on. Listen, anybody could be pressed into service. the Rams run to the Super Bowl showed that. I mean, they were like a mash unit going into the final quarter of that game. So any playing time for any player on this roster is just absolutely valuable.
Yeah, I'm thinking Forbes, Josh Wallace, and Kobe Durant probably get a lot of playing time in this game, I would hope. And the last thing, and I know you're going to agree with me on this, it's just get out of this game as healthy as possible, get as many starters off as soon as possible, as is reasonable. Again, we talked about it. You can't pull them all, but and if I hear a player down on the field, I'm going to be pretty upset. Let's just get out of this game healthy.
Yeah, when we talked about it, we didn't get a chance to really go over it, but Ram Nation, it was a big deal in the offseason with the players union getting the limitations in terms of how many practice days during the week and how many practices, and being able to limit the off-season contact drills, etc. That was a huge victory mark for the players, right? And then you get into these scenarios where players now, in I don't want to say meaningless games, because it is meaningful to some players in terms of, we just talked about contract scenarios, but this is a hard thing to navigate. So on one hand, the players got what they wanted, but now these type of scenarios are always going to be a situation in flux. So it's hard to get, what's the right way to approach it. I'm hoping, honestly, when we talked about it off screen, that it's just a matter of let certain players hit their contracts, boom, get them off the field, and let's get back into, let's call it a day mode. I'm hoping that's how it plays out, and that everybody gets out of this, from the Rams and from the Seahawks healthy, and then, go their separate ways. And, shout out to Zay Flowers. Hopefully he'll be back in the mix for the Ravens. It was a tough injury. Anything to do with the knee is always tough. So, everybody's pulling for you, big dog.
Yeah, I don't know what's worse, getting injured and missing a playoff game, or getting injured right before you're about to take your first 2 month vacation, your first vacation
Right.
in months. That can really suck too, I suppose. Okay, is there anything else you want to see that I might have missed here?
No, I mean, I think getting Kobe Durant a little bit of work. He hasn't played in a bit, so that might be useful for him. Just a little bit of work and then get him off. But other than that, yeah, getting a chance to see some of these key backups. I hate to use the term backup, because a backup can become a starter in the NFL like this, right? One play, that's all it takes. So there is definitely a functional component to this game. That's huge. But like we said, it's just a matter of, let's get out of here and let's see the seeding, how it breaks down after the fact. And I'm very, very confident the Rams can steal a W today.
Yeah, and what I want to see in our post game reaction, I want to see you give a game ball to Jimmy G. That's what I
Never,
want to see.
never, never going to happen.
It could happen. It could happen. Come on.
Never.
Yeah, I'm kind of pulling for him. He hasn't played. How long has it been since he's taken a snap? I think it was for the Raiders in week. It was very early in the season last year, so it's been
Yeah.
a while for Jimmy G. But
And this was the rationale really for the Rams when they signed Garoppolo, was that other teams had done it, to prepare for scenarios like this. You have a game, you need to get a starter in there. You want to sit your quarterback. This is what they were planning for. So
yeah,
this is exactly how they wanted it, or in case of a Stafford injury, for a game
sure.
or two. So I loved Carson Wentz was here, man. I thought that was one of the coolest things ever. So that was a little bit of that's a little bit of sour grapes on my part, because I wanted Carson Wentz. But
Yeah, yeah, I'm probably oversimplifying here. I'm sure I am, but Carson Wentz. I think of some of these really the backup quarterbacks that scare you are the guys that can do a little bit stuff off schedule. The Tyrod Taylors of the world, guys like that. And but then and that's fine. But then you guys like Jimmy G, I think, are better suited for this offense over a period of 4, 5, 6 games than Carson Wentz. But that's just my opinion.
and
Carson,
another really, since one of the things that's really standing out for me in this game is I want to see the Rams try to get Tyler Johnson rejuvenated, B. Witt, right? Jay Witt, try to get them back in the swing of things. I think those two receivers are huge. Remember, Tyler Johnson was on that Super Bowl team for Tampa, right? People forget that. So going into the playoffs, if you can get those two, off and running, think about how that's going to help the Rams, man. I think that's going to be huge.
Yeah, and Tyler Johnson and Tutu Atwell, by the way, both unrestricted free agents after this season. So this could be their last chance, especially Tyler Johnson. If the Rams aren't going to deploy him in the playoffs, it's his last chance to show his wares. So, yeah, be rooting for him too. Okay, Paul. I guess we're going to be getting together after the game at some point, do a little post-game quick reaction, and we won't know the final scenario until Sunday night's game is over in all likelihood. So we'll see how that goes. Okay, thanks a lot, man. Have a great day and enjoy the game.
Yeah, great day for football. Go Vikings. Go Vikings.
All right. Out here for Rams Up. See ya, man.
Family forever.
That's going to do it for this episode. Remember, you can reach us at ramsuppodcast@gmail.com. And don't forget about our YouTube channel. Our handle is at laramsup.com. Till next time, keep the horns up, stay safe, and have fun out there.